Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode here at Last Week in Geek, the video podcast from Manly Battleships. I am Mr. Panda.
And I'm Roxstar.
And this is the show where we offer you Geekios. They stay crunchy, even in milk.
What are they made out of?
It's a bit. Why do you gotta question it? We've got a lot of controversy to cover in this episode, so I hope you're all excited. But before we get to the meat, we're going to talk about the fluff, as it were. First and foremost, there's a new Walking Dead series being announced. It has nothing to do with Carl! No, it follows these teenagers who reside in the same world as the main cast in the series that gives this show its name. Don't know the extent of the series. All we know is that it's going to be about teenage angst in the post-apocalyptic future. Because, of course, what's a post-apocalyptic fictional world without teenage angst? It's like a thing. Don't you know? Don't you read Suzanne Collins?
So what you're saying is the series is going to be called Not Another Post-Apocalyptic Teen Angst Story.
We don't even get, like, America's Ass in it. It's going to be terrible. And at last, Disney has put out a trailer for a new, original concept movie starring The Rock. And it's going to be amazing. Look, you can just see them cruising through the jungle on the river. The worst thing that it could be is possibly, inspired by... Another attempt at a tentpole based off of a ride, Walt Disney? Yes, because that's one more thing that we needed in the face of everything else. Yeah, they get one good one with Pirates of the Caribbean, and then they gotta do Tomorrowland, and apparently Jungle Cruise. Next thing you know, they're gonna do Haunted House, and I'm not talking about that one with Eddie Murphy.
If you want to see them try to start a new franchise off of old recycled material, that'll be out July 24th, 2020.
Why don't they just make a movie about like a dead, deserted Disneyland where everything is recycled and the Disney cast members wander around in a daze trying to market candy to children?
Because that sounds like something Disney wouldn't do.
Bring joy to children? I absolutely agree. Meanwhile, Nintendo has released a gameplay preview of a new Luigi's Mansion installment, Luigi's Mansion 3, which is coming out on Halloween. How appropriate.
It looks like they've upgraded us from a mansion to a luxurious hotel.
Oh god, is that going to be like Hotel Mario except with Luigi?
I hope she made lots of spaghetti.
In news that will certainly make Panda happy at least, Netflix announced that there is going to be more Disastrous Life of Saiki K for winter of 2020.
Now let's just hope that they actually release an English dub with it. Not hoard it like the last second season.
Earlier, we covered a little tiny teaser for Onward, Pixar's newest movie. It seems we finally got a full-length trailer in which we found out that our marvelous heroes are going out on a journey to try to restore their father.
For a day.
For a day.
Which is almost nonsensical, honestly, because at least 3/4 of that trip is clearly going to be just his legs. Congratulations, I already know what's going to happen. Oh yeah, last 5 minutes. Hi, Dad. Bye, Dad. In fact, they're probably not even going to be able to say anything to his dad. It's going to be like, he appears and then he's gone. And the moral of the story is they spent more quality time with their father as legs than they ever spent with him in real life because he was a douche and got himself killed.
So you're saying this is the reverse of what happened in Detective Pikachu?
All I'm saying is, Pixar, you already did something about a dead parent leading children to discover their innermost being on a road trip. It's called The Good Dinosaur, and you did it already, and it wasn't good. You can't just remake the same freaking movie again like you did with... Alright, actually you did that with pretty successfully, with the whole Hunchback of Notre Dame versus Tangled thing.
Netflix dares to ask you... Could you watch the new animated series for Eggs and Ham? Apparently, a surprise to at least me, coming in November 8th, we're getting an animated series, as in multiple episodes, of Doctor Seuss'
Of green eggs and ham.
I don't know how they're extended that long.
Because the last time they tried to adapt a Doctor Seuss book, it went so well.
We didn't even... In this trailer, we get like maybe 10 seconds of animation. The rest is just the voice actors doing voice actor-y things and in the booth.
That Benedict Cumberbatch Grinch movie was very disappointing, I must say. Grab your booty shorts and hang on to your knickers, ladies and gentlemen, because for the remainder of the show, it's the fabulous Here in China episode! Woo! There's no America anymore. It's just smaller China.
Just China. Just China. Just China.
We already briefly talked about the fun episode from South Park, Banned in China, last time, but it seems that the controversy connected to South Park continues with our supreme oriental overlords. World famous DJ Zedd, who has been banned in China. Not for anything related to the Banned in China episode. No, he didn't even like anything related to that episode. He liked a tweet from the South Park Twitter about the 300th episode of South Park, asking people, what's your favorite moment in South Park? And that was enough to get him banned, cancelled in China.
How many likes did that Twitter post get? Are they all banned now?
Presumably.
So if you like that tweet, you are banned. And no surprise, Apple too has bent over to China's will. This time they did it by banning the HKMap.live app from their app store. Now it's kind of been honestly an on again, off again kind of scenario there of banning it and putting it back on. This time it's a permaban.
The app in question acts like a crowdsourced kind of mapping situation, much like Waze or maybe even Google Maps. And essentially you're just like, here are the cops. And everyone's like, let's not go there.
Because if you know anything about protesters and the cops in China, well, there's a reason why they're fighting for basic human rights there.
Of course, as many of you know, the story doesn't end there, and now we dive into the real meat of this whole controversy involving Blizzard's hit card game Hearthstone is, of course, a nice big focal point for a lot of competitive gamers. They have their Grandmasters tournament thing that's happening, and as part of that, one of the competitors in that tournament, one of the top players, a guy by the name of Blitzchung, got banned. Why, you might ask? Well, you see, Blizzard invoked a small rule hidden away in their terms of service for the championship that basically says, if you say or do something that offends people, we can ban you permanently or for a certain amount of time, and you lose all your prize money, which is what they basically did to him. They posted it on their official website as a ruling. From the way it was phrased, it sounds like there was an initial review period where like, this might be happening to you, and then they were like, yep, totally done. And this has caused a lot of controversy in the community because it sounds like the reason that he was banned is because of who found it offensive. Specifically, Blitzchung, while on a stream in the immediate aftermath of his victory during the tournament, invoked the phrase, Free Hong Kong.
Revolution of our generation is exactly their slogan.
Revolution of our generation, Free Hong Kong, rah, 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 fight the power. Now, what was really wild about this to me was not even, a lot of different competitive plays have rules against certain types of speech or things that you do outside of even the tournament. But what was really wild to me was this wasn't actually during gameplay. It wasn't particularly offensive to anyone. And despite it being a generally acceptable position to be taking on the political spectrum, Blizzard has apparently taken the legal position by doing this ruling that thinking the Free Hong Kong tagline is generally offensive. Like, that's the legal position they're taking here.
Yeah, sure, it's the legal position, but we all know why they're doing it.
Money, 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 money.
Can't get by without China money. The shit hit the fan after that. We have a group of 3 college kids from a college team of Hearthstone who were inspired by Blitzchung, went on their own stream during their own tournament, and took the step further, I believe, by not just saying Free Hong Kong, but boycott Blizzard. Blizzard did not respond to them. They did not get permabanned. So, seeing this as an offense, because they were expecting and basically hoping to get banned, they forfeited.
A few people, incidentally, on that specific issue, commented, oh no, how dare they not ban you after you complain about the other guy getting banned. But guys, that's the whole point. The whole point is that it's clearly related to something very specific, and more importantly, I think that it must have a litigation kind of undertone, because the guy who's he's from Taiwan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Blitzchung, who's from Taiwan, is in a slightly different legal position than, say, people who are in America, and if they have sanctions placed against them, can bring course in a U.S. court. So I think that might also have something to do with it. Of course, it might also just happen to be that the rebellious province of Taiwan, how dare this upstart rebel comment on Hong Kong and our Chinese sovereignty?
No, well, I mean, it gets worse when you talk about
Oh,
Taiwan.
bother!
As the boycott continued, a bunch of fan artists took the character May from Overwatch and attempted to turn her into the icon for the Free Hong Kong movement, in which they, I feel, succeeded in that.
Well, they're getting a little bit of traction. I wouldn't say it. She's not banned yet, Roxstar.
Not
so clearly,
yet.
not yet, have they really made her the icon of the movement.
But it is a pretty good protest against Blizzard, I feel.
We did see her in posters during the protests. We saw her presence get covered by Hong Kong news outlets. So China is aware, and we'll have to see what happens from there.
Multiple others have gone towards the boycott for canceling their subscriptions, including Mark Kern, who stated all of this on his very public Twitter rant about why he's canceling his subscription to Blizzard.
And if you're not familiar with Mark Kern, he was the team lead on the development of World of Warcraft and was very instrumental in lobbying Blizzard to bring back its new fancy-duper vanilla servers. So if you're a part of that effort, he had some pointed messages for you. The controversy has even caught the attention of mainstream audiences, including lawmakers, with people like Marco Rubio talking about how companies like Blizzard are kowtowing to the economic force of China over something so simple. Now, this is, of course, tied to other issues elsewhere, like with the NBA, which is a little bit outside of our purview, but what you need to know about it is that someone made a retweet of a line for the Free Hong Kong movement, and then everything went to shit. And it's like, every time something catches the attention of the Chinese government appears to be willing to bring a disproportionate amount of force to remove it from the equation in its economic efforts.
That's not all we saw. We saw even Blizzard employees conduct a walkout. Now, true, it was a small one, but it was extremely effective. It at least got news coverage to show that, yeah, Blizzard employees aren't even happy with this.
Now, during the heyday of the controversy, Blizzard was very quiet. There was one particular issue that some people brought up, the veracity of which we cannot attest to, but several people were reporting problems trying to cancel their Blizzard subscription and or delete their Blizzard account. Now, we've heard a couple different versions of what might have been happening here. A lot of people felt pretty strongly that Blizzard was basically like bottlenecking anyone's attempt to actually get that done. However, some other people have pointed out that some of these efforts might have just been, account lockouts aren't exactly uncommon. Possibly some people were even manufacturing their own problems so that they would not be able to do the deletion without additional verification. So if you see anyone talking about that, just be aware that there's no actual confirmation that Blizzard did anything to prevent people from doing it. People just happened to be reporting that was happening. Blizzard's vow of silence finally ended this past Friday when they put out a very late statement. And while there were several important points in Blitzchung's favor, including he would get his prize money back and his ban time would be put in half so he would only be banned from playing for 6 months, there are a couple interesting aspects to this statement that a lot of people took note of and that are fueling the controversy. It's not over just because they backpedaled a little bit for Blitzchung. First and foremost, if you actually look at the statement and the date it was put out, it was not October 12th in America, where Blizzard is based. It was still October 11th. So the first thing you notice here is that the statement was either drafted by the China side of the office or was intended primarily for that audience. And the other interesting thing is if you actually look at the translation of the Chinese version of the statement, there's a few little additional embellishments. Several people have commented on the translation, but what it basically boils down to is there's this extra line in there about how Blizzard was perfectly justified in defending the honor of China.
As well as stating that they will never let Blitzchung compete again and or work with the host ever again. So there's even contradictory statements as to what's happening with the fate of these people.
Well, don't you know, Roxstar? Just because he's banned doesn't mean they have to work with him after it's over.
I mean, that's true. They also don't have to work with the host after the 6-month suspension, so... And that China stuff with Blizzard is bad, right? We can all agree on that. There's a lot of controversy going on. But it seems like Blizzard is having a competition with Bethesda on who's going to have the most controversial year. Because around the same time, Blizzard forcibly changed the name of one of their World of Warcraft Classic guilds. What name could be so possibly offensive to get it renamed forcibly? Gay Boys. Their guild was called Gay Boys. Now, there have been interviews with some of the members stating that a lot of the other players were very homophobic towards them. So maybe they're the ones that should get banned. And the name that they got stuck with was absolutely ridiculous. It's not even a word. It's ZFXPK. Now, they did appeal. That was machine generated. ZFXPK.
Zedd fucks PK. Zedd fucks Peking. It's an anti-China movement. Good job, Gay Boys.
Their name has been reinstated, but it seems Blizzard is just going to hope this one gets swept under the rug, because we have heard nothing from them.
Sailing away with a fond goodbye to China for the moment, we enter What the Fuck 2019. A man managed to trespass and enter the offices of Valve, the guys that run Steam. And while in there, he brought in a recycling bin and took out over $40,000 in equipment and other goods from the office. What would you do with all that stuff, you might ask? Well, he wasn't the cleverest guy in the world because he didn't try to hawk it on eBay. He didn't go to Amazon Marketplace, of course.
Craigslist would be the best place to hawk it.
You can always try Craigslist. Maybe even Facebook Marketplace. No. He basically went down the block and tried to sell it at local GameStops.
As you can tell, he's been caught. But what boggles my mind is how does somebody walk into Valve, which the article I was reading was talking about all the fancy security equipment they have. He just waltzes into Valve and waltzes back out with a recycling bin full of crap. You know what would have been really valuable?
What's that?
If he had found Half-Life 3 in that stuff. And the controversies don't end with just video game companies. What are we covering now that's so controversial? Cosplay and blackface. Because, this week really needed to pack a punch with its controversies. We have here the French cosplayer, Livenart, who was competing in the Euro Cosplay Championships. Pretty cool. She's pretty decorated, has a lot of awards, very good cosplayer. She decides that for the final, she's going to cosplay Pike from League of Legends, which is not the same skin tone as she.
And if you can see here in the swap photo that she posted, that is the root of all the controversy going on social media. My favorite part was where one person commented, so, if you hadn't pointed this out and if this wasn't posted, I probably wouldn't have even noticed. Does that make it Schrodinger's cosplay?
She's not painting her skin to match the skin tone. She actually went out and made prosthetics to reach that. So it's just a full body prosthetic. People are arguing on both sides, obviously, that any kind of blackface is blackface. Or you have the other side that has the complex thinking of, hey, this is a prosthetic. She made it. She's not applying makeup to her skin. She's trying to recreate the character faithfully, because it even has all the scars and all the tattooing and everything he has. I actually didn't even realize it was the same person.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of the controversy, because like I said, if you look at the picture, whoa, that's a chick.
The championship said she wasn't disqualified, that she merely needed to choose a different cosplay, but considering that kind of cosplay requires a lot of time, and she only had 2 weeks, she was essentially disqualified.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence about this one, I'm going to be completely honest, because certainly if the competition wants to make rules, they have their rules, but, I'm not entirely confident that this is what they were supposed to be guarding against if this is a violation of the rules.
Well, I mean, what if the character had green skin? Would we be even asking this question? I've seen kids with rubberized Hulk fists that are green, and I know we're talking about a whole different skin color, but what's the difference just because you've made them black? What if we had Luke Cage fists and kids were playing with that? Is that now blackface?
I mean, I know that there's so there's like a couple different approaches that people have to the issue, and I mean, like every now and then the thing rears its head in the cosplay community because one more person goes with a darker skin tone or with an altered skin tone. Frequently, it's not so much people who are white-facing, if you will, because that's a whole different issue too, I guess. I think the general consensus for a lot of people is that if you're altering your skin tone to be like a demon or an alien, where it's, you know, like non-natural skin tones like purple or like
unless you're in the
orange.
Steven Universe fandom.
Oh boy, well let's skip that for just a moment. Things like that, then it doesn't seem like people have a lot of problems with them. Apparently, it's mostly the focus on naturalized skin tones, aka white people cosplaying a character with a black skin tone or a brown skin tone, or even something like... Well, for example, Roxstar, if I put on a sombrero and smothered, I don't know, clay on my face,
well, yes,
and went, "Reba!" like that.
But that's offensive. That's a caricature.
Is it?
Yes, it's a caricature.
I see.
Now, and I agree still that, okay, sure, no makeup to change your skin color, just cosplay the character you want to cosplay.
No, I gotta be completely honest here. Like, I don't even... I don't want to look it up right now because we're in the middle of the show. Can someone clarify for me? I'm not entirely confident that Pike is actually, like, black. I thought that was because he's dead.
He's a darker skin tone. I don't know, like... I mean, I guess you could still argue it because it's a natural skin tone. Are you saying he's a zombie?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with, like, necroscience, but, like, all humans eventually turn black when you just leave them to dry out. That's how mummies work. Oh. How would this affect you if you're a mummy cosplayer? Man, the more I think about it, the more this just does... man, I don't know. Like, I was reading some comments from a lot of different people because this post popped up multiple times in my feed. And it's like, even some other black cosplayers I know was like, you know, this isn't blackface, guys. Like, I can tell the difference. Why can't you? And like,
well, and that's the
I don't
other
understand.
Thing is, I don't want to be offended for other people. Like, you'll always have people criticizing about one thing or another. Somebody's bound to be offended these days. Because, like, I've seen people get offended because somebody got tan. And it's like, I tan naturally in the sun if I get enough of it.
God, do you remember that woman who's addicted to tanning beds in New Jersey? So, I mean, like, what if she cosplays that character from Atlantis? Is she brown-facing? I'm only being a little bit facetious here. Like, I'm genuinely curious.
Depends on who you ask. Somebody would actually... I know that there's people who have said yes. And, I mean, great, you do you, but I try not to be offended on behalf of other people. Because there are so many times where people are offended on my behalf, and I'm like, I'm not offended, guys. You can stop doing the Twitter wars. Like, and I find that a lot. There's a lot of people who are always angry about a group, and they're not even a part of the group.
I feel like something that we really miss out on, because like every time this comes up, I notice that this isn't universally true, because plenty of people in America have done things like this. But it's like every time it's a major controversy, like this story got picked up by the BBC, and the reason for that is because it happened in Europe. And I'm just surprised how frequently it is that it's a European cosplayer who's doing things like this, and then a whole lot of people get upsetty spaghetti, and lo and behold, the majority of them are Americans. I mean, like, I can tell you from my own personal experience that blackface in cosplay as an issue is a distinctly American problem up until fairly recently, because, you know, the advent of the internet, suddenly we're all up in each other's business. I'm not necessarily, like, I don't know how I feel about the broader issue, specifically when it comes to places like Great Britain and France. She's from France, right?
She's from France.
Because having done some pretty extensive historical research in the area of minstrelsy myself, which is the entire basis of the criticism for blackface, is the historical minstrelsy stuff. I can tell you that y'all probably shouldn't attend any European performance of Othello. Europe does not have the same historical precedents and issues that we have. Are there discrimination issues and racism issues? Absolutely. But it's not quite the same. And
well, I mean, you can argue that Americans tend to get angry about stuff that has happened in our culture about other cultures. For instance, there was a whole big controversy with one of Psy's new music tracks, which was, it sounded like he was saying the N-word. Except he wasn't. It was Korean for I am. And they demanded that the language change. Like, that's the most extreme case. I'm sure not everyone was up at that high level. There was a small minority that was very, very vocal about they should change their whole language so it doesn't sound like something that might offend me.
I mean, like, we've run into this issue before with other nerd things. Yeah, we had the swastikas and the Japanese Pokemon cards for Zubat or Golbat, I think it was. And, you know, that traces itself to Asian luck symbols. What I'm getting at is that I don't know how to tell you about dealing with blackface in the cosplay community in general. I am very skeptical about this.
Yeah, this is one that I feel isn't blackface. This is coming from somebody who's light-skinned. We would love to hear what you have to say on this subject.
Please!
Everybody else has different opinions of what blackface is. I think until we draw a permanent line in the sand, that line's just going to keep moving to wherever anybody wants to put it.
And probably the only piece of non-controversial news that we're covering in today's episode, the missing piece of the Tale of Genji, Murasaki Shibuku's early masterpiece covering 11th century Japan. The oldest copy of that piece has been discovered. Hooray for archival preservation. History.
Last week we covered about Martin Scorsese and his views on Marvel. We'll put it like that. Views on Marvel.
He's still at it! He won't shut up!
He wants to double down and demand that cinemas fight back and stand up for narrative films.
Now, I'll reiterate basically the same concept we gave you last time, which is, you know, there's like a small element of truth to what he's talking about in terms of like the longevity of the format. I also don't think that theaters should be relying strictly on certain genres in order to make ends meet. But at the same time, Martin, shut up! Just stop. Go sit in your chair and direct a better film.
I guess I hope people go see it, unlike The Last Temptation of Christ.
And if you thought this year was lawsuit happy, we've got another one for you. A guy by the name of Zoltan Crisco, that's Crisco with a K, is suing a combination of people, including Marvel, Disney, Fox, Apple, and Amazon, among other people, over the 90s X-Men cartoon. Specifically what he's targeting is, you know, that awesome
Copyright!
Copyright strike immediately, because Roxstar just had to go. You know, it's yeah, there we go. There, you can have it. You can have the ad revenue, Google. That's what you wanted, isn't it? This guy, Zoltan Crisco, has argued that the song sounds uniquely like a song for a show that he did back in the 80s. Called Linda. It's about a female cop and her punch-pulling kung fu mastery. I love watching the intro to it. But I mean, like, I guess I see what he was getting at in terms of note similarity.
Yeah.
I think that the riff is distinctly different, but, you know, I mean, I see why he's arguing it. I don't know if there's a legal basis for his claim, but the reason it's popping up now after so many years is he claims he only heard it for the first time in 2017. And since that's kind of like the point from which he can actually start initiating a lawsuit, he's doing that now. He lived in Hungary for most of his life, so yeah, okay, he was behind the Iron Curtain and all that, but, you know, come on, guy. So we'll see how that works out.
There's a lot of people on this lawsuit, too. Like, I feel like he's just throwing the dartboards at the dartboards.
Like Gambit. Just throw the whole dartboard. Actually, it's more like a Deadpool thing, I guess. He's like, yeah, why throw the darts? You can't kill him with a dart. You know what you can kill him with? A fucking dartboard. Weighs 50 pounds.
I feel like he's just taking all the darts and just throwing it at the dartboard and seeing what sticks.
And for our final story on this episode, we have to talk to you about the dreaded and terrible colonizer, genocidist, and violence endorser, Mr. Spongebob SquarePants.
Yeah.
Oh, you thought I was kidding? No!
Apparently, Professor Holly M. Baker wrote an entire article
about how SpongeBob enables an attitude of... I mean, I could pull the quote for you, but we'll get to that in a later video, I assure you. I have something fun thought up. Basically, the depictions of SpongeBob as a... What was the word? Like a hobo on the bottom of the Bikini Atoll endorses a view that he has rightfully appropriated the land of the bikinis. I forget what the term is for people who formerly lived on the Bikini Atoll before they turned it into a nuke site. The bikinis.
All I have to say is I don't remember this SpongeBob. I remember learning absolutely nothing from SpongeBob because it literally is junk food TV. There is no nutritional value in this show. And that's despite that Hillenburg tried his best to teach us something about underwater sea life.
Incidentally, the publication, peer-reviewed journal in which this located is, I think, called the Contemporary Pacific or the Pacific Contemporary. The article is titled Unsettling SpongeBob and the Legacies of Violence on Bikini Bottom. So, if you're interested, you can go ahead and look that up.
You might find yourself having a barrel of laughs like we did trying to read that research paper. And
that's it for this episode of Last Week in Geek, and we'll see you next week, as well as for other videos on the channel sometime.
Bye-bye!